Hey everybody, I decided to get on here to give a little lecture about oneness because I think it's important that we understand what oneness means. I think whenever you are trying to evolve spiritually, that idea is thrown around a lot, and a lot of people don't really grasp or understand the concept of oneness. It sounds like a great meme. It sounds like something that people share and post all the time, but they don't actually have a grasp of what oneness means when it comes to spiritual development and enlightenment and going towards that. So, hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm not doing readings today. I'm just going to be sharing some spiritual messages and just kind of giving you guys some guidance and understanding about the idea of oneness. So if you guys have any questions about that topic or that, I would be happy to read your questions, and I'm actually going to answer some of them after we're done with the topic, because I really want to talk about this. And I think it's important that we have a time to come together. I mean, everybody always wants to go to church on a Sunday, but I like to go to church every day. I like to go to the church within my heart every single day. And, you know, the idea of church, people don't like the idea of church because they're like, no, it's like religious or whatever. This is Ferny church. So this is me kind of breaking down some sort of spiritual or spiritual idea or lesson, and then kind of giving you an understanding from my perspective, from what I understand because of the experiences that I've had, and giving you guys guidance to be able to use it in your lives. Because it's one thing to go and hear something inspiring, but how the hell do you use it, right? How do you put into practice some of these spiritual teachings that you're learning when you do go to church, or when you do go to a lecture, when you do learn from, read a spiritual book or see a meme on the web. So, right now I think is a great time for us to understand the idea of oneness, because we're having to come to a place of oneness as a society, dealing with the circumstances that we're faced with. I don't think that we can afford as a country, as a planet, to separate ourselves at this time. I don't think we can afford to say, you be over there and, take your problems with you. Like, someone else's problem is our problem as well, because we're all one human family. And if something is happening somewhere else in the world, it's going to affect us in one way or another, whether you realize or grasp the complexity of our interconnectedness. So I think it's important right now that we are kind of forced into self-isolation and quarantines, that we be able to connect with each other and still understand the idea of oneness, and still be able to help each other grow and evolve as people, as spiritual people as well. So I'm going to read a little passage from one of my favorite books. And for those of you who want to ask me questions about the topic or the content, I will be happy to read some of those afterwards and then give you an additional take or an additional understanding. So I'm going to read this first. It's a two-way conversation. It's actually, this book is Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And whenever I saw the topic like God, I was like, because I'm not the person that wants to run into a religious mindset or religious situation. And just the idea of God has that whole religious vibe to it. But God is beyond religion. God is, way more than that. And God is just another name and another word to say the universe or source or all things. And so this is what this is. So when I first heard about this book, I was like, I don't really feel like reading a Bible book or, really reading a religious book. Why am I going to depend on priests and nuns and people who are, not living a typical human life to give me typical human spiritual guidance? It's like, if you want to know my struggle, then I need to know yours. And you have a lot of people in the world now who just say something spiritual, but they don't understand how to implement it, and they just don't really know what to give you to help you implement the idea. So for me, it's like, this is why I respect the masters so much, like Buddha and Jesus, because they weren't just, up in a mountain somewhere, completely cut off from the rest of society, coming up with these grand ideas. They actually had a somewhat human life, and they had human experiences, and they were able to use that to inspire people to connect with them and to share their own understanding and awareness of things. So this is a two-way conversation with Neale Donald Walsch and his, him talking to God, and they're going back and forth with each other. He wrote this. This is an incredible book. I love the Conversations with God series. I read these back I want to say maybe in the late 2000s. I read these books, and they were very inspiring then. It kind of blew my mind open then, but even to this day, it's still relevant, because now that these themes and this information is trending and more people are becoming aware, it is just even more valuable today, because this stuff was rolling out, 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago in some instances. So this is a two-way conversation, and he's asking him about being one. And so I'm going to kind of play the parts for each of the people. I'm going to play the part of God, and I'm going to play the part of Neil in the conversation, so that way I can read it to you, and then we'll talk about it afterwards, okay? And if you guys want to ask me questions about it, or just have any questions that you're wondering, just period, I'll see if I can answer it for you. I may know the answer. So Neil, so God says, "Have I not said I and my Father are one?" Neil says, "Yes, but..." "Have I not said we are all one?" Neil, "Yes, but I didn't know you meant that literally. I thought you meant that figuratively. I thought it was more of a philosophical statement, not a statement of fact." God, "It's a statement of fact. We are all one. That is what is meant by whatsoever ye do unto the least of these, ye do unto me. Do you understand now?" And Neil says, "Yes." God says, at last, at long last." Neil, "But you'll forgive me for arguing this, but when I'm with another, my spouse, for instance, or my children, it feels that I am separate from them, that they are other than me." God, "Consciousness is Consciousness is a marvelous thing. It can be divided into 1,000 pieces, a million times a million. I have divided myself into an infinite number of pieces, so that each piece of me could look back on itself and behold the wonder of who and what I am." Neil, "But why do I have to go through this period of forgetfulness, of disbelief? I'm still not totally believing. I'm still hanging out in forgiveness." God, "Don't be so hard on yourself. That's part of the process. It's okay that it's happening this way." Neil, "Then why are you telling me all this now?" God, "Because you were starting not to have fun. Life was beginning not to be a joy anymore. You were starting to get so caught up in the process that you forgot it was just a process. And so you called out to me, you asked me to come to you, to help you understand, to show you the divine truth, to reveal to you the greatest secret, the secret you've kept from yourself, the secret of who you are. Now I have done so. Now, once again, you have been caused to remember. Will it matter? Will it change how you act tomorrow? Will it cause you to see things differently tonight? Will you now heal the hurts of the wounded, quail the anxieties of the fearful, meet the needs of the impoverished, celebrate the magnificence of the accomplished, and see the vision of me everywhere? Will this latest remembrance of truth change your life and allow you to change the lives of others? Or will you return to forgetfulness, fall back into selfishness, revisit and reside again in the smallness of who you imagined yourself to be before this awakening? Which will it be? So I love that passage, because it really does put into perspective the idea of oneness. And for me, oneness, I have been studying oneness for a long time. And I find that all of the masters, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all of these masters, and even the ascended masters, if you go into the etheric works, they all talk about this idea that we are all one. We're all one family. We're all one thing. But you have to look at it from a much more infinite perspective. It's like we're not all just one. We are all I'm like a cell in the massive body of the universal consciousness. I'm one cell. Without all the one cells, the massive body doesn't exist, because it is the culmination of the one cells. And not only that, but we are breathing in to existence from our own engagement and interaction with each other. We are breathing into existence reality. Create, the rest of creation. We're breathing it into existence by just being every single day in this moment right now. As you are listening to this, your thoughts, your mind, your emotions are having reactions. There's stimulus going on there. And from all of that, God is using that to create the rest of the universe. So that is how important you are in the modeling of everything. Not only that, but every one of us, every one piece of us have the ability to connect to that higher consciousness level. In other words, my soul, my cell in my body, my cell has the ability to tap into Ferny's brain and mind and then bring through some of that. And that's what we see in the masters and those who've come before us, the people who are channelers, who are channeling amazing works of truth and authenticity and spiritual knowledge, because they're tapping into those higher sources. When I have my conversations with Aja, that's what's happening there. I'm tapping into higher forms of myself in the grander scheme of things. And the same thing with you. You have the same ability. It's what Jesus used to say. All that I can do, you can do also. He never said, you're not worthy and you are damned and you are the sinful and you are deserving of no love. Never heard that. Never heard that in any of Jesus's actual confrontations or conversations with people. You can find that in the rest of the damn book, but in the one conversation when the master is speaking, you don't find it there. And that's because that isn't, that's the truth. What he speaks is the truth. And it is a personal experience that he was sharing with his disciples. Buddha did the same thing, etc. We are all one and the same. And so what is God? We are that fraction, we are that individuation of source energy. So there are a lot of people who in the etheric realms and the etheric studies and conversations and etc., they talk about how the ascended ones cannot go higher or cannot evolve beyond the point that they are unless we go along with them. And you wonder, well, why can someone on a higher level go higher up and the rest and not have to worry about everybody else? It's the same thing with us. We're so focused on self-enlightenment, we're so focused on just building ourselves up to a point of perfection that we don't realize in order for us to actually connect with that form of perfection, we can't just do it alone. We have to take the rest of civilization with us. We have to take the rest of consciousness with us. So in order for myself to evolve as a being, I had to come to a point of understanding that I can't just go forward and let everybody else, okay, hey y'all, I know y'all are not enlightened, y'all are ignorant, y'all are stupid, y'all are not at the level of spiritual progression that I'm at, so y'all can stay back there and be, live in that ignorance and live in that pain and live in that suffering. I'm going forward to enlightenment. That is not the message of the masters, nor is it the path to mastership spiritually. If you want to progress, if you want to evolve, if you want to unlock the keys to the prosperity and love and joy of oneness with God, you have to embrace the oneness with God, which means you have to accept all the other parts, all the other sides. You have to see all of it as part of our own self. You exist for me and I exist for you. My experiences would not be possible had I not had those connections with you all. And so we are all interdependent on each other. So if some of us do painful things to the rest of us, they will still reap the benefit of that pain. They will still be karmically tied to those individuals because they are one. It's the same thing. If you love those who are not you, if you love those who suffer the most, if you love those who you actually hate the most, then you are still acknowledging the oneness that we are all a part of. We are all the same being. We're just having individuated experiences. We're having individual moments here in a universal divine moment of consciousness. That's what this is. It's life. It's consciousness. It's the breathing process that God is engaged in. So we are all interdependent on each other. And if you begin to practice oneness, the idea of practicing oneness is to really look at your loved one, the people that you love, the people that are there for you, and also look at the people who are not there for you, the people who you don't really care for, the people who you don't want to love, the people who you hate. If you still practice love, even despite all of that, you don't, and this is what I was talking about in my last video that I posted, you don't have to make what someone else is doing okay. You don't have to accept someone else's actions. You don't have to line up with somebody else's vision. You exist and you have a individuated perspective for a reason, but you don't have to like any of those things. But that doesn't change the fact that we're all still the same being having an internalized experience of expression. And so even those you hate, even those who have done you harm, even those who have slapped you across the cheek, show them love. send love to them, even if it hurts, because by doing so, you are not only understanding the lesson of the masters, but you're also practicing loving yourself as well, because you are a reflection of them and they of you. And there will be others who will see you in that way. And if you do not show the people you hate love in just the simple gesture and energetic mindset, then someone will not be showing you love, and you will line up with that experience, and your life will be a reflection of that conflicted and contradicting experience. So if you want to master yourself and to reach a new level of enlightenment, to rise up to another density, people are talking about fourth and fifth density, all of this other fancy words for the same thing, which just means line up with source energy, line up with love, practice it even if it hurts. It will transform our entire world. We're not going to do that overnight. We're probably not going to do that in the next 10 years or in the next 50 years. This physical world's here for a reason, and we're still going to have these dances and still come here to have our experiences as individuated physical construct beings, or human beings. But practice love, even if it hurts. Practice it, because we are going to help transform the world, and we can only do it one gesture at a time, one moment at a time, one of you at a time, for all of us to come to the same place. If you want to evolve, and if you want to move further into love and to experience it, then offer it to others without any expectation, without any pressure for them to change. Just offer it. And that will begin a ripple effect that we will all see the benefit of, that we will all begin to understand and experience directly. And we will all see the love of God, the love of the universe, in every person that we meet. But we have to do the work right now in this moment. So today, your homework for today is, if someone pisses you off, or if you see something that annoys the shit out of you, or if you just don't really care to have any kind of involvement with a particular person, or if you don't want to do something for work, for those of you who are still working because you hate it and you're stuck in a situation where this is just your reality, even if it hurts, offer that love. Just envision your heart opening up like a door, and then let love pour out of it. Just pretend all these hearts are just like coming at you. If you want to use them like heart bullets, then use them like heart bullets to start the process of sending love out aggressively. But once you start to kind of feed into the loving part of it, you'll connect with the emotion of love, and you'll start to send it out and send it out and send it out. And even if someone treats you badly, or if someone wants to come for you, if you're going to react, okay, react, but just try to have a loving reaction, not a passive reaction. I'm not saying don't react. I'm not saying thank you so much for being such an asshole to me. I love you so much. No, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is, you know what? I hate that motherfucker. I really don't want to talk to him right now. I am so pissed off at what he just did. But I'm going to sit with it for a moment. I'm going to do what I need to do to get myself right in my head. And I'm going to open my heart. And I'm going to wish that God sent him further love, and that he receives more love, because I cannot fix this. I can't even do anything to make this right at this moment, but I can love. And that is still who I wish to be, who I am at the core. And even though this isn't going away as fixed situation, but I can love still, no matter what. I can still love. I send you love. I send you love. I send you love. Many, many years ago, I healed a broken heart because I loved the person who broke it. And this was not an easy task for me. This was someone who had been a very dear friend to me for 10, 15 years. And we ran into some struggles as friends, and professionally, because we were trying to work together and do stuff together. Professionally, we were just not able to coalesce and come together in a way that was going to strategically work. So I walked away from the situation. I did the best thing that I needed to do for myself, for my business, and I walked away from that situation because I needed to do the best work possible, and I can't do the best work possible unless the people that I work with or interact with are on their A game. And if they're not on their A game, I'm not going to stay around and just let myself have to work through that. So I walked away because it was the best decision for me. And this individual after that just was not happy. They were in a place of peace. They felt rejected. They felt betrayed, and which I completely understand, because when you say, hey, we're going to do this together, you're not doing your part of the bargain, I'm walking away. This isn't going to work for me. But they felt betrayed. Their feelings are valid. Doesn't matter what the specific situation was, their feelings were valid. So they went on and they didn't recover themselves from that situation. They continued to spiral into just like a worst case scenario for themselves. And ultimately their business collapsed. And it was very sad to hear about that, because that's not something I would have ever expected to happen from someone who was very stable business-wise as a person. So that didn't make any sense to me. But that was their journey. That was their path. But instead of looking at what they could have done differently, look at what they could have done to change the situation, look at what they could have done to better the way that they were doing business, their business didn't collapse, and they wanted to blame everybody else because they didn't want to take responsibility for themselves. So they came for me, and they came for me with a lot of anger and a lot of rage and a lot of like, you're this because of you, this is because of you, even though I hadn't been in the picture or even had anything to do with that person for 4 or 5 years. They came for me and they were like, you're responsible and you're going to pay. And I was like, and so they tried to come at me financially, because they felt that was the only way that they were going to make it right, is to try to like rebuild everything by taking what somebody else was doing or what somebody else's achievements were. I got it. I totally get that. I mean, it's easy to blame other people. It's easy to look at someone else and see their flaws and blame them for why your shit isn't working, than to do it yourself or to focus on what you did for yourself. Because even when someone else is responsible for our shit not working, what did we do to put ourselves in that situation? What did we do that we contributed to the momentum of that moment, in that specific case? So I was heartbroken because I never took action, nor did I ever aggressively come for this person, because it's not my character, it's not who I am as a person. But I was heartbroken because it was a very painful experience to go through. Someone that you trusted, somebody that you loved, was trying to hurt you, and they were trying to destroy your creation. And so I handled it the human way, which I said, okay, here's my attorney, talk to my attorney, he'll take it over from here. That took care of itself, but it didn't matter, because even when that all went away and I didn't have anything to worry about, I was still heartbroken, because these are people, and I'm sure you have this experience where you connect with people and you let them into your lives, and then not in 1,000 years would you think that someone would do this to you. You might see them do it to somebody else, but you're special, you're different. They shouldn't want to hurt you. And so when they come for you, it's heartbreaking. And so you lose a sense of trust, and you lose a sense of faith in people. And it almost makes you want to keep people at a distance, because you don't know what someone might do if they feel hurt, or they feel angry, or they feel whatever reason. So I was heartbroken every day, and it was just something every day when I thought of this person, I was more heartbroken than anything else. And it was a constant emotion and experience that I was having on a daily basis for several weeks. And I asked my guides, and I asked, Asha, I was like, what do I do? How do I deal with this? Because I'm so broken in my heart over this. And the answer was very simple, and it came back the same way: send them love. And I was like, hell with that. Fuck that. I don't want to send this person love. Like, they just went and did all this crap, and they're not taking responsibility for their own bullshit. Why are they going to come after me? Like, I don't want to send this person love. But they came back and they said the same thing: send this person love. You need to honor this person. You need to honor this path. You need to send them love. So I was like, okay. So I began to really just dig deep within myself, and I forced myself to open my heart and to send this person love, because what else am I going to do? Who else am I going to be? Am I going to let this turn me into this bitter old queen who just can't get over this one thing in their entire life? And then the rest of my life is going to be filled with moments where I'm being bitter old queen to all the people that can potentially be blessings? No, I don't want to be that person. Then that's not what kind of life I want to live. So I started sending this person love, and I forced myself every day to think of them, intentionally think of them, and open my heart center and then send them love. And it forced me to really get under control the sense of resentment and the sense of pain, the sense of, betrayal. And I actually got to a place where I love this person. I really do. I love this person. I want them to do well. I want them to do good. I don't want them to fail. I want them to succeed. I love her, but I'm not going to have her in my life because that would be a mistake. That's the human journey. I learned from my lessons, and so I'm not going to repeat some of those mistakes. I will work on the energy around it and all of the lessons gained and all the lessons experienced, but I'm not going to subject myself to those experiences. And that's fine. That's, you should do is if you learn your lesson about something, then put it into practice on a human level. But from a spiritual level, I'm not going to let this one painful experience reduce my ability to love and to share with other people in a way that I think would still be beneficial to the rest of the world and to just us as people. So I let, after a year, I was good with it. I didn't have any feelings about it actually. And I still continue to wish this person love. Last year, it's been several years since that. It's been almost like 7 or 8 years now. But last year I got a message on social media from the person wishing me a happy birthday and wishing me well. So even though I, didn't respond because I didn't want to initiate a conversation, but I know that this person received the love that I sent them in one way or another. And I appreciate that coming in that way because it was validation that we don't have to live in a place of pain for the rest of our lives. We can release something and let it go. So what questions do you guys have about what we just talked about? Because I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. I'm going to scroll through here for a second and see if I can find some. Coco Poncio Vallejo, thank you because I am losing my strength. I completely understand that. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to work through those kinds of issues and those kinds of situations. And it does. It takes a lot of work. And people think like, oh, I'm just going to snap my fingers and be positive. It's not just about being positive. It's about working through the trauma or the pain, because in order to work through the trauma or the pain, sometimes you have to understand it because it's there for a reason. And sometimes it's meant to teach you a lesson. And if you don't learn that lesson, it will keep showing up in your life until you grasp it, because you chose as a soul being to work through that and to have that kind of experience to enable you to experience an aspect of the divine, of source of all things in a unique and individuated way. So let's see. Por vida. Yes, I'm going to save this. This is going to be part of my lecture series because I want to make sure you all can have access to that. Because just use my experience. I mean, a lot of people in the spiritual community and in the community where they're trying to support people and to put out positive information and so forth, they always talk about the message, they always talk about the ideal, but they never use their personal experience to exemplify what they mean. Because by just seeing somebody else's direct experience with a situation or a topic, it helps to enlighten and to give us a chance to understand it. And it's something that I never truly appreciated, especially with stuff with media and stuff like that. You have all these people who are success stories in film and television and all that other stuff, but they don't talk about the shit that they had to get through or to do to get to that point, and then the lessons learned and why it built them to that point, why it got them to that level. Which is why people always make fun of me because I'm very anal retentive when it comes to whenever I begin a session with people. I'm like, I go through my disclaimer, etc. Whenever I start these lives, I try to go through the disclaimer. I go through all of that very meticulously, and the reason why is because I learned a lesson a long time ago, and I'm not going to open myself up in a vulnerable way like that again. That was a very much important lesson as well. So it wasn't just a spiritual lesson. There was a lot of different lessons and things that came out of that, but I gained and I got stronger because of it. And that's what I used and put it into use in that way. Oh, it's already the afternoon. I'm like, I still feel like it's morning. Michelle Williamson, thank you for sharing about this. How do you practice when you are upset with them? How do you practice when you're upset with them? You have to wait till you're not the most upset. In other words, right after something like that happens, it's going to be hard for you to twist that or turn that around and make that leap from like a low vibration to a high vibration that quickly. It's going to take some time for you to get to like a place of calm and recenter. So what I would suggest is when you're upset, try to find an activity or do something that makes you feel like makes you feel like yourself in your most peaceful state. You're not going to be the most peaceful person. You're not going to get to the most peaceful state, but practice it, because if you practice that, then you'll get better and you'll get faster at it. And so it won't take you as much time to get over something that someone else did. Usually for me, it takes me a couple hours. Right now, to this point, for a really hardcore like fight or argument, it takes me about 2 hours for me to just come down off of that and just chill and be like, because even if I didn't react as aggressively or I wasn't yelling or anything like that, in my head, the energy is anger and just like, you're, this and you're that and this is your fault or whatever. I go into that mode in my head, and it takes some time for me to kind of chill out, Ferny. Like, it's not that serious. You're going to be fine. Even if that's true, you'll be fine. So I have to talk myself into a place of like, just be okay, be okay, be okay. Once I come to a place of be okay, then I'm in a much better mental space to be able to switch it around and send love. I'm better at it today than I was, 5-10 years ago. I mean, 5-10 years ago, my whole day would have been completely ruined. My whole day would have been a whole pain in the ass and just a waste, because I would have been feeling that way for the entire day. Now I've got it down to like a 2-hour time frame. So for me, that works for me in that way. Hey, Alyssa, thank you. She's like, hey, gorgeous. Hello from Houston. Love them from afar. Hello, Ferny. Can you tell me anything? Let's see. I need to do that. So the Amber Lynn has a question. She says, what are your thoughts on soul connections? I know we can make the decision to not interact with people, kindred spirits, soulmates, etc. But is there a purpose for these souls? Soul connections. And so it just depends. You can actually experience soul connections in kind of two ways. You can have a soul, someone else, and because I'm not my soul, I'm a piece of my soul. My soul is just grander being. That's Aja. Aja is my soul. So when I'm talking about my soul, I'm actually talking about Aja, because Aja is a representation, the culmination of that from a personified perspective. But my Aja, my soul, may have agreements with other souls that we are going to work together to elevate ourselves in one way or another. And so if I'm going to, let's say, hustle in a particular life so that your soul can see or experience that through me or from watching me go through that, and then is gaining from that, that's an agreement that has been made on a soul level. Vice versa, it's the same thing. We help each other all out. Some of your biggest enemies or some of the people that you hate the most in your life are actually people that you might have had the closest connection to on a soul level, because if they are stirring up that much within you, that means it's intentional and there's something that's supposed to come from that on both sides of the party. Whatever we do here is all flexible, it's all fluidity, so we can, then changes happen along the way or when we're in this state, but there is a soul agreement in place there. However, if for some reason, let's use my ex for example. Everybody kept telling me my ex was my soulmate. My ex was my soulmate. I was like, okay. I made a conscious choice that I wasn't going to allow myself to let this person back into my life. I wasn't going to allow myself to subject myself to that kind of a painful experience with that individual again, even though I felt so intensely and strongly for him. So I made that conscious decision. Now, even though there may be lessons that we were supposed to have together after that, I was like, nope, that's, I'm just not going to go, I'm not going to gain those lessons through that way. If I need a chicken sandwich, I can probably go over to Church's and get a chicken sandwich, or KFC's or wherever and get a chicken sandwich, or I can just make it at home. There's different ways to get what you need. You don't have to just have it set in stone in one way. So if I made a conscious choice being here that I was going to go against that theme and that trend, someone else will come in and will essentially play the role that was meant for me to get from the experience. So even though I may choose against someone in particular, their lesson will still be gained because I've made a conscious choice. I'm not going to go that route to learn it or to gain it, but another lesson will be made that gives me the same overall general experience. So there have been other lessons gained that I probably wouldn't have gained had I not gone through any of it. But when one's out of the picture, someone else will pop in and will fill in the gap. That's kind of how it works. So those can also be soul connections, because it's in that moment that the two connections are being made, like viable options for lessons, and then the piece comes together, and then you move forward with that in the lesson in that. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like a supplemental soul connection, in other words. Zamina Gonzalez has a question. She says, I have a similar relationship with my parents. I'd rather love them from afar. How do you go about it when it's related to family? Thank you, Ferny. That was a great story. Yeah, sometimes, you can, there's conditional love, the human conditional love, which I talked about in my last video. And then there's unconditional love. The unconditional part of us, we don't have to have a personal relationship with someone to offer up unconditional love. Unconditional love is a state of inner being. Conditional love is a situation played by circumstances. So when it comes to family members and what you're talking about, that's the conditional love part. That's as a human being, how can you use this in the best way, or what can you do to kind of maintain the best version of this as possible? So for me, like my mom, I talked about this also in the last in the video that I did on healing your shadow self. It's on my YouTube if you want to check it out. But for my mom, having her with me or talking to her every day, it's very difficult and challenging for me. So I love her from afar. Now, if she needs anything, I will be there for her. And if she needs me to do anything, I will step up and do what I got to do. But to have a personal, regular, everyday relationship with her is very painful for me and difficult. And I feel that I can't be the best person that I wanted to be as a son. So I just try my very best to be a good son, not the best son. See what I'm saying? So I try to be a good son, but not the best son, because trying to be the best son in this situation may not be possible because of the circumstances this entails. So for me, I love from a distance as a human being. But from a spiritual point of view, I love my mom no matter what. Like I love her. Just as a being, as a person, I send her love. I want her to be happy. I want her to have whatever she needs, etc. Even if I'm not the one providing it, even if I'm not the one that can offer it up, but I still want it for her. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a parental love that encompasses and embraces everything. So even though I have never been a parent, I was a big brother to my younger sister. I've been a parent to a lot of my students who are learning how to be better psychics and mediums. I have been a parent to my crew at Starbucks back when I was the store manager and I was, the person that ran the show. So I try to mother people in a way where I want the best for them, I want the most for them, and I offer them love in a parental way like this. But on a personal level, there's still the subjective conditional love struggle that's going to be there. No one is saying that you should do away with that. I'm just saying that there's two forms of this, and there's a way to practice it while still maintaining boundaries that are healthy for you. Amberlyn has another good question. Is manifesting a better relationship with the people who make it difficult possible, or is it just smarter spiritually, mentally to move on? Don't use people as a reason to not do something. Because I ran into this hiccup years and years ago when I was just dead tired all the time. I didn't want to do Starbucks anymore. I wanted something different. I wanted what I'm doing now, to do full-time as a profession, full-time. So I wanted to do this. And I was using every experience in the book to kind of avoid stepping up to the plate and just doing it 100%, no apologies. And what I mean by do it 100%, no apologies is don't use the people around you as a reason or an excuse not to do something. Yes, you still have, loved ones around you have to consider. Yes, you have a significant other you may have to consider. For me, I had that awful experience with the friend, and I had to, that destabilized my first major attempt at starting my business. And then I met somebody else who needed some help, and I got into business with them, trying to help them with their business, and thinking, I can build my business while I'm helping them. And it was almost a repeat of what happened with that prior friendship. And so at that point I was like, I need to just focus on my own business right now. I still want to help people, but I need to help myself first. And so I refocused the attention on my business, and I started to 100% focus on what I needed to do for me. And there was a lot of people when I was leaving Starbucks and I was going to be doing this full time who told me, what are you doing? This is a mistake. You're going to run into issues. You're going to destabilize your finances. You have benefits with Starbucks. What are you doing? This is a full-time gig that you've had for over 10 years. You're settled. You got job security. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I can try to explain to them why I'm doing what I'm doing, but if they don't support it and if they don't understand it, I'm going to have to be selfish, because I can't put my happiness or what I need to do for me in somebody else's hands. I either do it and with no apologies and then just, help them catch up to where I need to be with it, or not, and yeah, this can come across very asshole-ish, very much like a control person. But when it comes to my own happiness, I am a control freak, because you have to be. If you're not, then you're not going to understand the opportunities that you have for happiness all around you. Not only that, but when you're happy, people around you tend to be happier as well, right? So that's what I did. So I told these people, you know what, there is no job security. Starbucks could collapse tomorrow and I would lose everything. And my benefits, I can pay for my own benefits. And my money, if I'm making decent income or revenue, then I will do it. But I have to at least try. I have to make what I want to do the priority. So I had to say no to a lot of family members and friends with time. In that 1 year that I was really hustling and busting my ass, my partner did not want me to do this full time. He was more concerned with stability, which I understand, makes perfect sense. But I'm like, I'm willing to risk everything at this point because I need to be happy. And this is something that I highly and truly believe in. Not only that, but it's been culminating since I was a teenager. This isn't something that I just randomly came up with one day and said, oh my God, today I want to be a real estate agent. Tomorrow I'm going to quit my full-time job and be a successful real estate agent. No, sweetheart, you need to spend 2 years, 3 years building up a clientele base, building up reputation, building up, consumer experience that you can use to validate that you're damn good at being a realtor. You just deciding to get your certification and quitting tomorrow is probably not the best thing, because you're basically gonna be, you're like, I just learned how to swim and I'm gonna jump into this ocean and there's whales and there's stingrays and there's sharks and I'm gonna do incredibly well. No, baby, it doesn't work that way. You need to be a little bit more strategic about the way you're gonna do that. However, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying do it the right way. Do it the way that will give you the best opportunity for success. And so I was strategic about how I was going to make that switch for myself. But once I did it, I decided I was going to go ahead and go forward and do it. And that's exactly what I did. And a year later, everybody who told me that I was making a mistake, it was telling me, you should have done this sooner. You should have done this way, sooner or earlier, because this is the best decision you ever made. I'm like, I know. I believed in myself before anybody else believed in me. So, all right, guys, I love you all. I just wanted to kind of pop on here and say hi. I'm going to answer one more question because I think this is a good one. Shelly Nickel. I'm trying to forgive a family member for what they put me through, and it is very hard, but there is times when we have to be in the same room together at family functions, but I learned to just ignore them. So I had a situation in my family where one person in the family, or on a very far end of the family, raped another person very close to me in the family. And I use the word rape because that's exactly what it was. It was rape. So sexual rape. And so I still had to deal with that person who did the rape because they were part of the family. That was not easy. That was very difficult, very challenging, but I could only do so much. There's nothing more I can do other than what I was able to do back then when this came out. And even then, it was not handled in the best of ways within the family. And it was not handled in a way that I feel was constructive or even addressed the issue. And people can see it in different ways. But I still had to be in a room with this person even after this occurred. And I was like, you know what? This is these people's reality. And I am not going to turn every single situation that has nothing to do with me into a reason to be a champion for transformation and change. And this was not my direct experience. So I can't force people to accept responsibility, nor can I force people to make others responsible. I can only do what I can do. So I have had to be as civil as possible. And even then, and that has taken years, I think that's taken more time than me forgiving the friend or sending them love. It's taken me years to still send them love. Because even with all of that, just because someone did something horrifically wrong doesn't mean that they're less of a human being. They're just a fucked up human being. That's what they are, but they're still a human being. And so I can only deal with it in the way that I can deal with it. Until those parties address it or choose to address it, regardless of what we have to say, there's nothing we can do. So I minimize my interaction with those people. But when I have to be in a situation, which has already happened 3 or 4 times, and it was usually at a funeral or at a wedding, when I had to encounter these individuals, I tried to be as graceful as possible, but I limited my interaction or engagement with that individual because they lost me as a family member the moment that happened, because they made a decision, a very bad decision. And I'm not going to sit there and welcome them into my life, but I will still send them love from afar and hope that they figure it out in the future. So, and actually since then, a lot of crap happened that has probably helped that person change in some way or another. Nowhere can it even justify what they did, but there's still something godly behind the scenes working. And that's true love. When you can love through all of that, even in the most horrific circumstances, that is practicing mastership. And that takes a long time to practice. And I would not wish anyone to have to go through that experience to have to get to that point, but that's what I had to go through. So it is possible to love from a distance and even love while still also setting up very strong boundaries that you're not going to allow nor accept this into your direct experience. Okay. All right, guys, I love you all, and I look forward to our next lecture. I will probably announce it next time to give you all a chance to kind of get ready and prepped for it, and I'll bring up the conversation or the topic we'll talk about. Okay. Love you all. Talk to you next time. Bye.